Hey, Miss Linsky, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry to see that you're back in the hospital, but I'm glad I get the chance to come meet with you again.
It's good to see you.
It's just good to see you. So I just was dropping by, seeing how you were doing, see if there's any changes since last you were in.
I don't think so.
Okay. I was looking through the medical notes, and you have been having some more symptoms with your congestive heart failure, and you have had some recent hospital admissions.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of raise this issue and see if you wanted to talk about it. I noticed you had some advanced directives already, such as you've already designated healthcare power of attorney. You already done with living will, and I even saw that you have a DNR, do not resuscitate order in there. And I just wanted to say that that's great that you have done all of that, But I noticed that those were from a couple years ago, maybe when you first came in, your first admission. Right. So I didn't know if you wanted to take some time to review them. And then there's a new document. It's called the MOLST. It stands for Medical Orders for Life-Sustaining Treatment. And it gives you a finer tool to kind of tell, whoever's treating you and your healthcare power of attorney how you want your end-of-life care when you can't make decisions or you can't verbalize how you want that to go.
Yeah, I want to fill that.
You want to fill it out right now? Okay. Well, that sounds good. Do you mind if we go through your old forms?
No.
Okay. So right here we've got your healthcare power of attorney. And it said it was done in 2013. So I'm just going to review this, make sure it's up to date, it's true, you already want it. Okay. So who does it say that your designated agent is?
It's my mother.
Who's your mom?
Michelle Linsky.
Michelle Linsky. So you still want Michelle Linsky, your mother, to be your healthcare decider when you cannot?
Right.
Okay. And is she still at this address and phone number?
Yes.
Okay. That sounds good. So we'll just leave this. And then it says your alternate, you only have one alternate, but it says your alternate is your sister, Jennifer Linsky. Right. And is she still at this address with this phone number?
She is.
Okay. That sounds good. And you still want her as the alternate?
Yes.
And this would be in the event that you cannot make your own decisions and your mother, who you designated as your primary healthcare agent, can't make your decisions.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Okay. And have you had conversations with them about this kind of stuff before?
Yeah, they know.
Okay, that's good to know. It looks like you've kind of crossed off stuff about guardianship. And since you crossed it off, I don't know if you want to talk about it right now.
No.
Okay, that's fine. I think that's good. Okay, well, it looks like there's no changes to this. So then we will just move this on. Okay. Go down to your living will. It looks like this was done in 2013 as well, on the same day. And it says to notify Michelle Linsky, your mother, and Jennifer Linsky, your sister. Okay, that sounds good. And I just kind of want to review what a living will is. You can stop me if it gets redundant. So a living will is kind of a document where you get to say what kind of care you want when you can no longer make decisions. And so the Ohio Living Will form says that if you're in a terminal condition, so a condition where you will die, there's no cure, and you're unable to make your own healthcare decisions, or if you're in a permanently unconscious state, and there is no reasonable possibility that you'll regain the ability to make your own healthcare decisions, then this kind of document says that you can direct your physician to let you die naturally, but that person will provide comfort care for you.
Yeah, that's what I want.
That's what you want? Okay, and it looks like that you have signed in, you've initialed this. Okay. And so that's still up to date with your wishes? Okay. Okay, thank you. So then we'll just leave this. And it looks like also in 2013, you filled out a DNR, and you still up to date. You still okay. Okay, that sounds good. So, the MOLST form, right, kind of gives you a more fine-tuned with your actual physical care than does the living will or the DNR.
Okay.
So both documents are very good to have, but they don't kind of dictate what kind of care you can get. They're kind of blunt tools, which is all right. So with this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections.
Okay.
To talk about. And the first one talks about cardiopulmonary resuscitation, so CPR. That is only used if you do not have a pulse, if your heart has stopped, and you're not breathing, so your lungs have stopped. You've stopped breathing. So this first section kind of lets you designate whether or not you want a physician to attempt resuscitation by using CPR, using the full treatment, the full intervention, or this says do not attempt resuscitation. So kind of a DNR goes along with that.
Essentially the DNR.
Yep, this is the DNR piece. Right, because this is only used when you have no pulse and when you're not breathing.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just going to explain it first, or do you want to keep it the DNR?
Yeah, I want to keep it.
So I can mark it for you. Okay, so part B is medical interventions. So this is when you do have a pulse or you can breathe. So, this could be you just have a pulse or you just are breathing or both, but you're still unable to make your own decisions. You're still unable to verbalize anything. So there's 3 different levels that you can say that you want. You can check if you'd like to. The first one is full intervention. So this includes intubation, mechanical ventilation, and cardioversion. So, intubation and mechanical ventilation is they would intubate you, so they would put a tube down your throat and enable air to get through, enable for you to breathe. And then mechanical ventilation is they would use a machine to breathe for you. You don't want that. Okay. So, and there's also, just to let you know, in each of these sections, there's additional orders or instructions. So if there's something that you're like, I kind of want that, or I'm not sure, there's this situation, you can kind of write that down. So, but we won't check this one because you're not interested in mechanical ventilation or intubation. Okay. So the next one is limited additional interventions. And so this includes things like the use of IV fluids, a cardiac monitor as indicated, but you would not use, you would not be intubated, or nor would you be put on mechanical ventilation. You may consider, and this is up to you, this is kind of, you could put this in the additional order section, for things like a CPAP or BiPAP machines. Those are different machines that help you breathe, but they're not as intrusive as a mechanical ventilation system. Do you have any thoughts about that? I'm
interested about that one, but I kind of want to hear what the other one is too.
Okay, no, that's fine. We can come back to that. So the last one is, this is if your pulse and or you're breathing, if you have a pulse and or you're breathing, but you're still unable to kind of make your own decisions, you're still in an unconscious state, this would be use comfort measures only. So that would be able to use medication by any route. They could position you to make you more comfortable. It would care for your wounds if those wounds were painful, and all the measures and interventions they would do would be specifically about relieving your pain and suffering, but they wouldn't do anything that wasn't comfort care. So they wouldn't actively try to keep you alive. They would only attempt to limit and decrease your pain and suffering. So they would use things like oxygen, or could, oral suction, and kind of like if there was something that was blocking your airway, they could manually go and get it. If it was causing like distress or pain. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
And it should be noted, I kind of left this out, that each of these also align with a different type of care in a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So the comfort care only, you wouldn't be transferred to a hospital unless your pain and suffering needs, your comfort needs, cannot be met at your current location.
Okay.
The limited additional intervention, that kind of intermediate step, you could be transferred to a hospital if you indicate it, but you would not go to an intensive care unit. So you wouldn't go to the ICU, you know. And the full intervention, which you said we're not interested in, means you would go to the ICU.
Okay.
So do you have any thoughts between the limited additional interventions and the comfort measures only?
I think I'm interested in the limited, but I don't want the CPAP or the
BiPAP? Okay. So what you're saying is you're interested in them using some medical treatments to further your life, but you don't want them to be intrusive.
Right.
Right. Okay. And you're not interested in the CPAP or the BiPAP. So is it okay if I write that down?
Yeah.
Okay. No CPAP or BiPAP. Okay. Would you like to be transferred to a hospital in order to receive this care?
Yeah, they can transfer me to the hospital, but like they have in here, I don't want to go into the ICU.
Okay, so avoid ICU. So they would avoid ICU. Okay, I'm gonna put yes, transfer to a hospital. Okay, and I'm gonna just check this one. Okay. Okay, so the next one, it talks about antibiotics. So, and this is not talked about in either the living will or the DNR. So there's kind of 3 different levels about use of antibiotics. And of course, this is when you are able to make your own decisions that these would go into effect. Does that make sense? So there's 3 different levels. So the first one is they would use antibiotics if clinically indicated. So if there's a clinical need for antibiotics, then they would use it. The next one is to determine use or limitation of antibiotics when infection occurs. So as opposed to being more preventative, the first one is kind of more preventative use of antibiotics. This one is the physicians will determine the use of antibiotics when that infection occurs. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And the last one is no antibiotics. They'll use other measures to relieve the symptoms of infection. And you also have a space for additional orders. For example, some people have bad experiences with different antibiotics. They're not necessarily allergic to them. They just don't like the use of specific antibiotics, or they want their antibiotics used in specific ways. Do you have any thoughts about if you want them to use antibiotics when clinically indicated, if you just wanted to use it only when infection occurs, not before or at another time, or if you don't want them to use it at all, regardless if you have an infection or not?
Right. I don't really see anything wrong with them using antibiotics.
Okay.
It's not like intrusive to me, and I don't really feel like that would be against kind of what I want. So
Yeah.
I think they can use antibiotics whenever they see it fit.
Okay. So you want them to use antibiotics whenever they clinically think they should. Okay, that sounds good. Okay. The next one has to do with essentially food and water. So hydration and nutrition. And this is kind of artificially administered. So this is when you can't feed or give yourself water. So this is not a choice. It's just kind of always, they always say they're going to do this, and I just want to make sure that this is okay with you. This says that they'll always offer food and liquids by mouth if that's possible.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you're okay with that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, that makes sense too. So there's 3 different levels of artificial food and water, so artificial nutrients and hydration. The first one is you want long-term hydration or nutrition by a tube. So they would put a tube into you, and they would, put the nutrients and the hydration into you via that tube. This would be long-term. So not just a trial period, not just a short amount of time, that you would, either live like this. This is how you would survive.
I don't like that.
So you're not interested in that one. Okay. The next one down from this is a trial period of hydration and nutrition by tube. So this one, they still use a tube. They would put a tube in your body, but they would have a trial period. So a length of time that you could designate if you wanted to, that says, okay, if I don't recover by this time, then I want you to remove this feeding tube or this hydration tube. How long that is? So there's a space for additional orders, so you can take some time and do that if you want to. But that's up to you. And so, but I would normally clinicians have a specific length of time in mind. And so the last one is you do not want a feeding tube or a hydration tube at all. So you never want a tube put into you when you can't make your own decisions. So you said definitely not the first one, but between the trial period, you want to do want a period of time for them to try it to see if you come back and are able to feed yourself. Or no, I don't want a tube at all.
I'm kind of struggling between the two because I don't really want tubes, but if it's like a trial period, I don't want them to not give it to me and then I could recover, you know what I mean? So
what you're saying is, on the one hand, you don't want tubes being used. But on the other hand, if a feeding tube would allow you to survive for a period of time and have you come back and come back to being conscious or being able to make your own decisions, you want to be able to have that opportunity.
Right.
Okay. Do you feel if there's any specific length of time that is appropriate for you? Daisy.
I don't think I'd want to have a tube in me, honestly, longer than like 2 weeks.
Okay.
So after that, I just feel like
no longer than 2 weeks. Okay. Is 2 weeks kind of a hard and fast thing for you? Is that the absolute longest? But I'd rather it be something else, or 2 weeks for sure. This is how long. I want that trial period.
I just want it to be 2 weeks.
Okay. So you would rather have them try and use a tube, rather than not using a tube at all.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I just trying to understand. Miss Linsky, thank you. So I'm going to use a trial period of hydration or nutrition by tube, and then I'm going to say the trial period of 2 weeks. Okay. And then they will remove that tube if you aren't able to feed yourself or wouldn't survive without that. Right. Okay. Just want to make sure we're on the same page. So the last one is kind of about who we discussed this with. And so since it's just been you and I here, I'm just going to sign myself, so palliative care, social worker. But I do encourage you I'll give you a copy of this. I do encourage you to go over this with your mother, who's your primary healthcare power of attorney, and your sister as well. Give them copies. You can give them copies of it. There'll be a copy that I'll give you. There'll be a copy that's stored in the electronic database. But I encourage you, since we haven't talked about it with them present, that you could do that.
Yeah, they should know.
And I could
so they're not surprised.
I could be there if they come visit. If that would make you more comfortable, or you can do that on your own time.
No, I think it would be helpful because I would need your help explaining something.
Okay, that sounds good. So I'm just gonna mark what documents are along here with this, right? So you have your DNR, you have your durable healthcare power of attorney, and you've got your living will.
Right.
Okay. So I'm just gonna do one more pass through. So you said that if you do not have a pulse and you're not breathing, that you would not want them to attempt resuscitation. So no CPR. Right. Okay. The next section, you chose to have limited interventions. That's if you have a pulse and or you can breathe. So that would be things like use of IV fluids, cardiac monitor, but you said no to the CPAP machine or the BiPAP machine, and you said yes, you'd like to be transferred to a hospital.
Yes.
Okay, the next section was about antibiotics, use of antibiotics, and you don't feel that antibiotics is kind of intrusive to you at all, and so that you're marking down is that whenever the physician determines it to be clinically indicated, that you'd like them to use that. And the next thing is about food and water, right? And this says that you've noted that you want a trial period of 2 weeks of feeding or hydration via tube, and if you don't come back or aren't able to express what you want after that, are able to feed yourself, then you would like the removal of that tube. Last section. It's just been you and I in this discussion. We've talked about that, when your mom and or sister are here, that I could come and help you talk more in depth about this stuff. Okay, so I'm going to have you sign right here. So Samantha Linsky. Okay, and this is going to be self. And so you sign that for me. And I actually can't sign it, but we'll have Dr. Brugler sign this. He's the doctor on the palliative care team.
Okay.
So, okay. Well, Ms. Linsky, do you have any questions for me about this?
I don't think so, but if I have any, I'll
absolutely. Well, thank you so much, and you just let me know when your family gets here. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye. Oh God.